Hi, everyone. I am Andrea Flack-Wetherald, and this is the 12th installment of Lunch and Breathe. So, Lunch and Breathe is a lunchtime series that I've been doing for a couple of months now. At the beginning of the week, normally I do it on Mondays, but more on why I'm doing it today later. The idea is to start the week off getting rerouted, regrounded in who we really are so we can be the people that we intend to be. When we take a mindful moment to recalibrate, get tapped into who we really are, that's what helps us be the leaders we intend to be. It helps us engage conflict. It helps us engage relationships better. Good things happen when we start in alignment. I see it's reloading. Okay, I'm talking about how easy it is as people who are committed to peace building. And maybe this is peace building in your office, maybe it's peace building in your family or neighborhood, but it is absolutely the case, as I am a current example of having taken a day off of work yesterday because of stuff going on in my neighborhood. It is absolutely possible for stuff in your personal life to affect you at work. And so, as I've continued teaching more specifically about peace building behavior, I've sort of been unsure about my role on LinkedIn. I've been a LinkedIn content creator for a long time now. LinkedIn has at times been the number one or number two way that I gain new clients. And so as I've shifted into realizing, okay, we are in a heated time in our country, we are headed into an election year. The work that I do, it's always been my sneaky plan for the work that I do in corporate settings to impact our country, to help us be people that we mean to be in our families, and for it to really take a ripple effect outside of work and change the landscape of corporate America, change the landscape of our country. That's always been the kind of the evil secret plan of And Beyond. But as we've headed into this election year, I've been much more purposeful about teaching the peace building behaviors that are so present in mindful improv. The skills that improvisers use to create comedy on stage, live, as is the case with improv, those are the same exact skills that can help you engage people that you disagree with in your office, in your family, friends from high school, friends from college, relationships that matter to you. Every relationship is not one that you necessarily want to salvage, but the relationships that you do care about, these are the same skills that will help you salvage those relationships, that will help you show up with authenticity, stand up for what you believe in, sure, but also honor the person that disagrees with you. And that is the way that we find a way forward. That's the way that we find a way to work together and actually achieve the stuff that we need to achieve in our country in order to have the future that we want, the future that we want to have in our country. So today I'm talking to those of you that are like, this is pretty dang hard. I'm pretty exhausted right now, pretty much feel like throwing in the towel. And just to be clear, when I say throwing in the towel, I know that what that means for like most of us. I think that there's maybe one or two ambivalent people in our country and everyone else is real fired up. So I know that when I say throw in the towel, that doesn't mean I just don't care anymore. It's too exhausting to care. I really don't think that that's where we're at right now. I think where we're at is throwing in the towel on the solutions that will actually help us find a way forward together. And instead feeling like, you know what? Fine, you want to fight? I'll fight. And slipping into the fight or flight territory that has created this incredible polarization. And we all know that it's toxic. We all know that we are not building something that we're proud of right now. We see this in our families, in our churches, in our neighborhoods. I keep coming back to neighborhoods. There was a shooting outside of my house in front of my home that my husband and I saw on Sunday night. It was terrifying. It was very scary. It's an ongoing thing. I won't get all into it, but I just want to say that as I'm sharing about these peace building things, this is not coming from someone who's like cozily from an armchair watching from a distance. Like, I am in it. I am in the trenches too. And so I share this as someone who feels exhausted too sometimes and feels burnt out and overwhelmed too sometimes. But the things that I'm going to share with you are mindful improv skills today, 3 things that have just helped me incredibly. And if you saw my posts yesterday, you know that I took a break from work yesterday. I was supposed to go live with this content yesterday. And I had been up through the night, Sunday night, worrying, scared to death about the fact that this had just happened. One of our friends was almost shot in the head. Like it's a horribly scary thing. And so I was like, I'm not ready to go live. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel honest for me to be live pretending like meet and meet, here I am living the dream, when I'm like, I need to cry and talk to my mom and regroup about this crazy thing that just happened. So I took the day off yesterday to read this content because I needed it too. So without further ado, I want to get into 3 things that will help you not fall into the jaded hopelessness, passionate pessimism, joining in on the fighting, or just being like, ugh, I'll just keep it superficial at Thanksgiving. I can't deal with this. Those things don't feel good to you. They don't feel good to you. And so you don't want that. So there are 3 things, and I decided just now in this moment, like a real improviser would, that I'm going to deliver them in a different order, because I want to start with one that is maybe a little bit contentious sounding. The first one is silence is not an emergency. Silence is not an emergency. And we are living in an era where the word silence is especially, it's a word that's out there right now. And it's a word that's out there in a way that's different than I mean it. Because I'm not talking about silence where we're just hiding from it and we're like, forget it, I'm not participating. There are some times in which silence is the, for instance, where we're like, I'm just keeping it superficial. We'll talk about what at this point, everything feels political, but just keeping it superficial. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is that moment when something gets said, that moment when you read something and your knee-jerk reaction is to feel like standing up for what I believe in means I need to engage this right now as fast as humanly possible. That is not what serves your purposes best. And so I have loved the experience as a comedian working in improv of realizing how valuable silence is. Silence is a really useful comedic device. There are these moments on stage where, something happens and then the stage gets completely quiet and you can hear anything in the audience. It's completely silent. And you have this decision to make as an improviser because you really don't know what's going to happen next. You're all making it up as you go. You really don't know what's going to happen. And you can panic and be like, oh, I really hope that whatever I say next is what everyone is expecting it to be after this dramatic pause. Or you can let your brain fall into that silence too. And you can trust that if I just stay connected, I will have what I need. If I just stay connected with my scene partner right now, I will have what I need. And what I love is these silent moments, the audience comes in it with you. I wish that you could just see what I'm talking about. The audience comes in it with you in this silent moment. And then the most amazing thing happens, which is that the slightest little facial expression, the slightest little anything gets the biggest laugh of the night. Because silence gave everybody this time to marinate together, to get on the same page, to really be listening and paying attention. Sometimes silence calls your attention to how important the next thing is. Did you guys really hear that? Because that is like mind-blowing to me. We fight silence so hard, and we say that we think that it's the same thing as ambivalence. It's not. Sometimes silence is calling your attention to how powerful the next thing is, right? And then our simple, faithful acts of compassion, acts of love, acts of courage are all the more powerful because now we're all on the same page. Now we're all in that moment together. So silence is not an emergency. I see that in my life as an improviser. I see that in my life as a parent. My goodness, the number of times I'm like, hold up now, mom needs to go in the kitchen and have some Jesus water, wink. And then I will be back in this conversation with you. But in this moment, I need a little break. It's the same thing in all of the conflicts that we are experiencing. If we would take a moment to breathe and trust that silence is not an emergency, we would find a lot of clarity. So second of all, I want to talk about trusting the troop. So this is where I see a lot of peace builders, a lot of people who care a whole lot about building, a future that is equitable and just and beautiful and peaceful. I see a lot of people falling into this trap right now, which is shouldering all the responsibility. And I think it comes from a sense of guilt. As a white person, I know I have felt that way for sure. And taking on way more than my share, to the point where I'm getting resentful and exhausted and some kind of way. Instead of remembering that it is safe to trust the troops. So TROUPE, I think. I'm not a good speller. Is how we spell it in improv. And it's this idea that you're not building it alone. There are other people. Every single improv show starts in the green room with the performers touching each other on the shoulder, making eye contact and saying, I've got your back. And the reason we do that is because it's frigging vulnerable. It's scary to go out there into an audience full of people that paid for you to be funny. And no, I'm just one person. If you think that you don't slip into imposter syndrome like every third show, you're either a better improviser than me or you're mistaken, because that is what happens. And so it is critical to notice, okay, we're headed into vulnerable territory. We're headed into something that is scary and takes courage. Let's remember that now is a good time to remind each other, I've got your back. Now is a good time to remember, I'm not the only one fighting for this cause. I'm not the only one. I've got this whole ensemble of people, and we're going to do it together. Please remember that. Please remember that, because here's what this frees you up to do. This frees you up to say, I don't have to pick every fight. Amy, thank you. I see Amy here is saying that this is a good reminder. I think she's talking about this trust the troop thing here, which is so critical. I need that reminder all the time. So what this frees you up to do when you are remembering there is an ensemble of people that are working with me is you don't have to pick every fight. If there is a time when you are minding your own business, perusing social media, and cousin so-and-so says something that makes you want to like pull each individual hair out one by one, I've been there. Those are really good times to remember, I have an ensemble. It's not my job to get in the trenches right now. If I can't, if it doesn't feel like an opportunity to me, if it feels like an obligation, not my time. And you're serving you and them better. And you're serving your purposes better. It's not just you being like, self-preservationist. It's you serving your ultimate goal better, because let me tell you something. There is a different scene partner that can engage that person better than you. When you are in obligation territory, when you are in martyr mode, if it's not me, then this person's just going to go on being a bigot forever, or this person's just going to go on being a fearmonger forever, or whatever it is. Because on both sides of the political spectrum, we're doing this. This is one thing we have in common, is we're doing this. We're picking fights out of fear because we care a whole lot, and not remembering that love is how we connect with people and is how people actually learn something. What we need in order to achieve our purposes is to learn. We need increased understanding. You don't get that by shoving a spreadsheet down someone's throat. You don't get that by getting into these bitter bickering wars and let me say this differently, because it's really easy for me to be shooting for clapter here right now and kind of hoping that my audience is watching. They're gonna be like, yeah, go Andrea. That's not what I want. Because what I was about to say is really what you're doing is proving that you're smarter. That's really what you want to do. That's not it though. That's really not it, because the spirit of the piling on facts and statistics, the spirit of the hyperbolizing, if that's a word, is not necessarily to prove that you're smarter and prove that you know more. Sometimes it really is desperation to get someone to come alongside. Desperation to be like, please don't let this happen to the earth. Please, please don't let this happen to our neighborhoods. Please come alongside. Please help me build a future that's more equitable. Please help me protect, the population that you are advocating for, perhaps the one that you most identify with, whatever the case may be. I think it's desperation, more than anything. But understand that when you're in that headspace, that fear-based headspace, nothing good comes from that fear headspace. No action that you take in that moment will serve your purposes, as well as trusting the truth and trusting that you're not the only scene partner. SCENE, scene partner, is what we say in improv, meaning any person that you're engaging with. You're not the only one. I promise you, because I have been the person that had, and I still am, that has a lot of growing to do. And I didn't come alongside and understand, my bias. I didn't understand the way that white supremacy thinking had infiltrated my brain because people were in my face calling me a bigot. That's not what helped me learn. Were those people maybe correct sometimes? Yeah, hell yeah. I'll be honest about that. But that's not what helped me learn. It was the people who were so in their own growth journey that I couldn't help but be magnetically pulled into that growth with them. It was so incredibly attractive to see people on this growth journey with humility and courage and kindness, being like, I want to do better. I want to learn how to do better. And I'm like, yeah, me too, man. Sign me up. And in those conversations, I had monumental growth, monumental understanding. That's how we move the needle. That's how we get where we want to be. So if you're not in that headspace of like, my heart is so full of the growth that's happening for me. My heart is so full of this new perspective and new understanding that I'm having. And I just want to share it because my heart is so full. If that's not where you're at and it doesn't feel like an opportunity full of love, please don't do it. Please understand that your offerings will not be receivable to this person, right? So trust the truth. There's a scene partner who is in that headspace. There's some random person at Starbucks. There's some whatever. Trust the truth, okay? Your ensemble is far-reaching. Your ensemble is powerful. Your ensemble is everywhere, okay? There are people working for love in surprising places. Let me just leave it at that because I could do a whole one of these just about surprising scene partners. In fact, I might share about that next week because I have found many. Oh, I see it's reloading. Can you hear me? I don't know if anyone's willing to comment. I know it's vulnerable to ask people for comments, and I always feel a little bit weirdo about doing that, but hopefully you can hear me. So third of all is bring a brick, not a cathedral. So what this means, this is an improv expression that we use, especially because when new improvisers are coming in, thanks, Amy says, yes, she can hear, so that's good. New improvisers often come in and have this whole idea for the scene that they want to initiate. And it's so complicated, and it usually involves aliens or just crazy over the top stuff. And we're spies and we work for the government and, all this stuff. Thank you, Harriet can hear too. I appreciate that. It's just a complicated whole slew of things that new improvisers often want to bring right from the top. So we call that bringing a cathedral, when really what it is that you've concocted very quickly a rough draft of a screenplay and you're like, let's do that, guys. But it's really hard to initiate all of that because how improv works is you say something, your scene partner says something. You need to have listened to what that thing was so that you can build on top of that, right? Bring a brick, not a cathedral. And you're going to build one by one by one by one. And what I hope you're hearing right now is that you have to use the offerings of the other people. If you don't do that, then you're not building a strong building. You're pretty much building two separate things. And it's going to take you, by the way, forever if what's happening is you build something, your scene partner puts something on top of that. But you're like, that's not how I would have said that. That's kind of hurtful. I don't think I like that. And you take that brick off and throw it away and then add your own thing. And then they add something. You're like, I feel like you still don't get it. I don't like that brick. And you throw that one away. And then you add something of your own. And then they add something and you're like, still no, don't like it. You see what I'm getting at? Like when your way of collaborating is micromanaging the way that collaboration can happen, you're not collaborating. And we do this so often with each other, where instead of making progress on how something can happen, we just get so distracted by this, that, and the other thing, instead of realizing, woo, I'm not made out of glass. I can totally handle being uncomfortable for a little tiny hot second while we're in this process of building something beautiful together. And the reality is that you're not right about everything, and I'm not right about everything. And so if we can't figure out how to trust the other people's contributions and realize that if we wait, please hear this thing that I'm about to say. If we wait forever for a perfect scene partner that never makes us uncomfortable, that says things the exact way we would say them, that executes on their passions the exact way we would execute on our passions, we will wait forever And we will miss the opportunity to do the critical work that needs to happen right now. Because please understand that while we are bickering, while we are sharing funny memes about people that are going to vote for a different person than we're going to vote for, while we are rabble-rousing with the people that agree with us, in the meantime, there are real human people that are getting lost in this chasm. There are real, really, really important issues that are needing our attention more so than the fighting and the rabble-rousing within our echo chambers. Shailene, hi, thank you so much. I love this too. This is big stuff. So the idea is, when we bring a cathedral, instead of bringing an offering, what this looks like in the world of peace building is having one very clear idea. These are my demands. This is how it must look when we've done it correctly. And we get so committed to that cathedral. This is what it has to look like. And we've brought this into the conversation instead of our one simple, malleable, specific, though. A good brick in an improv scene has to be specific. Man, I wish we had time to just do like a whole improv class. So bad. I would love that. Because there's about 1,005 ways that improv informs really effective peace building. But I'll stay on point here. So a good brick to offer is specific. I'm not saying just be vague enough that everyone can agree with you, because that's not how it works either. But you offer one thing, and you trust that even if people's contributions that are different from yours make you uncomfortable, or maybe aren't the full picture, maybe what you're accurately seeing is what they're saying just doesn't. There are problems with that. There are inherent problems that will not serve us in the long run. That's okay. It is safe to accept an imperfect contribution. It is safe to accept an imperfect contribution, because then you're going to add something, someone else is going to add something, and you're going to learn together. You will see, oh, I didn't see it from that way before. I didn't understand. My husband and I just recently spent some time in the backwoods, the deep woods of West Virginia. And I will say that I learned things I did not understand before, and had a clearer understanding of how it is that people feel and think, some of the things that they feel and think after seeing what their lives are like, very, very different from mine. A perfect example is, I'm going to be really vulnerable and give a specific example, and I'm kind of scared right now that this is going to create fighting, but I'm going to trust my ensemble and say it anyway. That's my decision right now. So I had not understood before, like, what is the deal with trying to save coal? I don't understand why we're fighting progress. It's confusing to me. I feel like people can learn how to do a different thing, like take a master class, do a different thing. I don't understand. Like, do you like being down in the coal mines? It seems dangerous. It seems unpleasant. I feel like there's other jobs that would be more pleasant. That was my thinking about this. And so I had a difficult time empathizing or feeling compassionate, or not even, let me be even more clear. I had a difficult time not being dismissive of this perspective, because I just felt like, online learning is a thing. It's available to you. After spending some time in the deep country of West Virginia, I understood, that is something that's available to me and is not available to everybody that is here. And did it solve the problem? Did I save the environment by having this revelation? No. But it helped me understand how my dialogue with people who are trying to save coal could be more compassionate, and therefore would probably help us come up with better solutions than the very dismissive and condescending way that I was sharing my opinion before, because I just did not understand a different perspective. So that's one kind of specific example that I wanted to share. The other thing is that when we bring a cathedral to a bricklaying party, what we end up doing is getting more obsessed with proving that we're right, because when we start bringing a cathedral, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So we bring this whole cathedral, and then people are like, no, that won't work because of this, this, this. And then you see your bricks getting pulled off and thrown in the trash. And you're like, well, hold on. I spent a long time thinking about that. I don't think you understand that I have a college degree, la, 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 right? We start getting into this territory with folks. And before we know it, we've gotten so obsessed with proving that we're valid that we've forgotten the point. We've forgotten that it's more important that we are building towards something than it is that we are proving that we're right. Is this making sense? I hope that this is, I hate to say packing the punch that was intended, but I hope that this is bringing the value and bringing the inspiration to you that it brings to me. Because when I realize how safe it is for me to just bring one simple thing instead of needing to do everything, that's where I find freedom. That's where I find rejuvenation instead of this exhausted pessimism, right? And so, for example, when I meet people in my life and their worldview is limited by fear, is limited by bias that they have not explored yet, there was a time in my life when I felt the need to save this person, which is so condescending, and instead of that, what I now understand is that it's safe for me to bring one specific tiny little offering and trust the love inside of that person to do the rest. Trust that the love inside of that person is going to be attracted to growth-based people that they will be able to learn from, that they will be able to hear what they need to hear from. And it doesn't have to be me. So, one example that I love to share is years ago, let me kind of anonymize this a little bit. Some of the details I'm going to tell you are not going to be factually correct, but I just want to protect this person's identity. So years ago, I was visiting a friend in Florida, and we were at an art museum. And when we were in this museum, there was a painting by a Palestinian artist. I don't remember anything about the painting, but I remember that this person who I love so dearly saw this painting and said, I didn't know terrorists could paint. And I was like, oh, that makes me so uncomfortable. And my knee-jerk reaction was, did she just insinuate that all Palestinian people are terrorists? That's what she insinuated. So my first thing is I'm processing what just now happened. I think this is what she just said in public. And my reaction after that was my heart just sank, because I was like, I don't know what this means for our friendship. That is a hurtful thing to say. That's not what I believe. And so I started shutting down. I started falling into that flight. I would consider that flight. I can't be in this friendship anymore. That is a hurtful thing for her to say. And then I was like, wait, that's not what I believe in. I believe in third way thinking. I really do. I believe that there is something other than fight, other than belittle her and put her in her place and come armed with statistics about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and all this. There's another option, And so what I ended up saying to her was, what did you mean by that? And which is a quick script I offer to people as often as anyone will listen to me. The simple words, what did you mean by that, are so reflective. And then you have to shut up, though, and stop talking and let this person hear what they've just said. And sometimes it's just this mirror that's like, oh, I heard how that came out, and that made me really uncomfortable, too. This is what I meant. In this case, she doubled down on it. And I was like, okay, now what? And then what I said was, is it okay if I share something with you that I learned recently? Because guys, she and I come from the same culture. We come from the same upbringing. Once again, I'm kind of getting into some specific and vulnerable territory, and I'm just going to keep on trusting the ensemble here. But so we came from the same worldview, and there was a day when I might have just laughed alongside her. But I went to a college that offers an Israel-Palestine study abroad trip, and a bunch of my friends went on that trip, and they came back with information that I had never heard before, with a perspective that I had never heard before. And because it was new for them too, they were on this growth journey, right? This is a perfect example of a time that I was able to learn from them, because they were so loving and they were so joyful about what they were learning. And it was easy for me to be like, I want to know, I want to know this new thing. So I said that to her. I said, may I share with you something that I recently learned, because I understand why you would say that. So she and I sat down on the floor of this art museum. She whipped out her Bible app to fact check what I was saying. And I'm like, that's fine. That's not how I roll, but that's how you roll. And I appreciate that. And we had a tearful, sincere, heartfelt conversation about what's going on in the Middle East, but also what it means to be people of love and what it means to err on the side of compassion, you know? So we have this whole conversation. We stand up, we're both crying. She says, "I'm so sorry I said that." And we hugged it out, and truth be told, we walked from that into a room that was all about the civil rights movement. And I'm like holding my breath, butt cheeks clenched, like, what's about to happen now? And it was fine. But I will just never forget that day. I will never forget that day and the incredibly important lesson I learned about offering something simple. Offering something simple. What did you mean by that? Is it okay if I share something that I recently learned? These simple things. And maybe let's say she would have been like, "No, I don't want to talk about this." That's okay, because what I did in that moment was let her know, hey, you might have assumed that because we have the same skin color and because we have a similar upbringing that I just agree with that, and I don't. So already what has she learned? Not everyone has my same opinion. I promise you, one person that has been incredibly closed-minded in my life to other people in the world, I promise you that when you just let someone know, hey, you trust me and you love me and I don't agree with you, that is a powerful understanding for someone to have. And there is a whole lot of ruminating that goes on behind the scenes. So bring a brick, not a cathedral. That will help you to not feel like you are overburdened with responsibility in the middle of all this. So that's what I got for you today. I would love to hear from you if you're willing to share in the comments some key takeaways. It would be really helpful for me as I'm continuing to do this work. It's helpful for me to hear what resonates so that I know how to share this work in a way that's receivable. So for example, I've been talking about improv for so long, I just kind of assume that everybody understands how incredibly powerful this stuff is when it comes to peace building. So I'm looking through who's all on this call, and I see one other improviser and other people who are not improvisers. So it's really helpful to me if you guys, especially those of you that are not improvisers, or those of you who maybe have just like taken a long enough break from improv that some of this content feels fresh or just hit you as like, oh, I've never thought about that when it comes to improv before. I would love to hear from you because this is so critical. This is the work that I'm on this planet to do, and I want to do it well. So I would love to hear from you what resonated. If you have questions about something, please let me know either in DMs or in the comments on this video, and I will absolutely get back to them, and I'll be checking through the day. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will have the recap of this peace builders can easily fall prey to in this time where it's like, oh, everything is so stressful and overwhelming. And it's really easy, especially during the pandemic, to fall into this socially acceptable self-medication territory that's not helpful. So I had a whole lunch and breathe dedicated to that as well. Any of the replays that you are interested in watching, you can go to andbeyondimprov.com/webinars, and you will see all of the replays there. So please, if this is resonating with you, if this sounds helpful, check that out. I'll be checking the comments through the rest of the day. Thank you guys so much for all of your peace building efforts, and I will see you next week at 12 p.m. on Monday, probably to talk about surprising scene partners. I think that's going to be the topic next week. All right, thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.